Apparently I can't count. Last week I said we'd look at 8 keys to reading scripture, and truth is it actually turns out I have 7. I hope nobody's too disappointed. After all, from a biblical numerology standpoint, 7 is the perfect number. So that's where we're at. To recap the previous 6 keys, let's look at them here. First, ask yourself questions about what you're reading, and start with, why was this written? Second, read it like a book, in bigger sections than just the small handful of verses we tend to read. Third, look for themes in the text and read with those in mind. Don't just read scripture by yourself. That's number 4. Read it in community. And number 5, practice. Don't let the initial roadblocks in reading scripture deter you from reading regularly. 6, write it down. As you read scripture, write the words out for yourself. Maybe just key verses or maybe all of what you've read, but write it down. In doing so, you participate in the words of scripture, incorporating them into your understanding of the world and yourself. And now for today's key. Talk about it. As you've read scripture, you will undoubtedly find things in it that benefit from discussion. Sharing what you've read with people who share your faith is a good place to start, but scripture, and most importantly, the effect that God's activity in our lives has on each of us, is supposed to be shared. The hitch here is that we've spent so much of our time as Christians talking about our own personal faith, put big quotation marks around that we've forgotten that the truth of the gospel is not just a personal reality, it's the reality. It's either absolute truth or it's not, and we can't have it both ways. Scripture is urging us, each of us, to share the story it tells as God's grand message for all of humanity. If we read it and don't share it with others, we're not only limiting our personal growth, we're withholding truth from the people God has placed in our lives. I want to encourage you today to think carefully about the first person that shared the story of salvation with you. Were they a well-known public speaker or a friend or family member? Were you convinced to follow Jesus because a well-polished presentation was given, or were you encouraged on a daily basis by someone who shared thoughtful words about Jesus' love for you? Sharing scripture doesn't require us to be great presenters. It doesn't require us to have a degree in biblical studies. It doesn't even require us to have read the Bible cover to cover. What it requires is that we share what we know to be true. Studying scripture is of great benefit for the individual who reads it, but it's of far greater benefit to them and to others if what is discovered in scripture is shared. I love you, and I pray today that you would find in yourself an irresistible urge to share the good news that God reveals in scripture with everyone around you.